Two Seattle Kraken prospects are invited to the NHLPA rookie camp. What does this mean for their odds to make the upcoming roster?
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's good, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. We're almost back to every single day. Erica L. Ayala, your host of Locked On Kraken. I am an accredited media member for Milano Cortina, already thinking of how we're going to cook up some fun content for you during the Olympics. Also a contributor at CBS Sports and a dedicated women's hockey journalist for the last 10 years and counting, as we have PWHL Seattle entering the fold. I am excited for today's episode. We have a lot to get to, but before we do all of that, want to let you know today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. And the future of the NHL, invited to the NHLPA rookie camp. Now, this is going to happen on Wednesday, September 3rd in Arlington, Virginia. And not every team has representation. It's going to be at the MedStar Capitals Iceplex. Of course, the Caps are, kind of hosting this. Since it's in Arlington, they're the closest team there. This is an opportunity for players from prospects throughout for players that are prospects or forthcoming rookies to skate together. They're going to do some promo things, rookie cards, etc. So who are the players representing the Seattle Kraken? That would be Berkly, Catton, and Jani Nyman. And so we know that Nyman was able to make his debut last season. He fit in, I think, pretty well. His size was noticeable. I think he makes a strong case for net front presence, something that we know the team wants to focus on. A lot of people think he has great instincts. I think we saw a little bit of that. 21 years old. Can he make the roster coming out of camp? The other invite is 19-year-old Berkly Catton, who we've talked about just crushed it in the WHL, has been to prospects camp with the Seattle Kraken a few times, and he's in a little bit of a tough spot because of the current agreement with the AHL. The Sound of Hockey has a great article from earlier this month in August. It's entitled Kraken Roster Battle, Considering Which Rookies Will Make an Impact in 2025-26. It's by our guy, Darren Brown. And Darren talks about how while next season this agreement won't impact the situation that we've had with Shane Wright and that we will have with Berkly Catton. Unfortunately, Catton falls right under that. That being that in 2026-27, each team will be allowed to put one 19-year-old CHL player in the AHL. But as we've talked about before with Berkly Catton, as was the case with Shane Wright, if he does not make the NHL roster out of camp, he will have to go back to junior hockey. He cannot play in the AHL. Now, Berkly Catton, I think, is going to be a phenomenal NHLer. Will he be a centerman? I mean, that's still a little bit of a question. But the question for right now that faces the Seattle Kraken is more so with Catton than Nyman. But do you have roster space for these players? Are you going to keep them on an NHL roster? And if so, how are you utilizing them? Now, before we get into the particulars, let's just go into the conversation that we continue to have when it comes to Shane Wright. Shane Wright did not make the NHL roster. He spent time in juniors. He spent time in the AHL and now is expected to be a permanent fixture on the Seattle Kraken roster. I'm a little less I'm not as worked up, I think, as some regarding how Shane Wright has been utilized. I'm not committed to my opinion as of right now. I'm just I guess indifferent at best. I do think that with Shane Wright's development, I've talked to Jessica, I've talked to Shane, and Shane seems like a very well-adjusted young man. Yes, he wants his opportunities, and there just seems to be a lot going on. Obviously, the Seattle Kraken, they changed GMs, they changed head coaches, and perhaps Shane's development got caught in that. And I suppose I have a little bit of leeway and runway for that, on top of the fact that hearing what Jessica has said, hearing what Dan Bilesma at the time has said, or even Ron Francis in the past, yes, they could have gone whole hog with Shane, and it probably would have been fine, but I think there were some developmental things that the Seattle Kraken was identifying that they wanted to refine a little bit more. I've talked about, I liked Shane with Bjorkstrand and Tolvanen. That was my favorite combination. That was short-lived because of injury and then the trade deadline, etc. And I've said this before, and I get it. A lot of people wanted Shane Wright to play more minutes. I do think Shane Wright will play more significant minutes in the upcoming season. Is he top 6 on this particular roster? That's to be determined. So we have to kind of talk about that. How Nyman probably most and Catton are dealt with, I think will tell us what the commitment by this organization is to the youth movement. I think that also will tell us how committed this team is to winning, air quotes, as soon as possible. How soon is as soon as possible? I love debating semantics, but also, like, I don't know, just be clear. When you use language, be clear and maybe be on the same page. I don't get the sense that the organization, from Sam Holloway to Lywicki to Jason Botterill, are all on the same page, which makes me wonder, where is Lane Lambert in this equation? I don't think that we know yet. I think Botterill and Lambert are probably more so aligned than anyone else that we've heard from, especially in that press conference where they announced Botterill and effectively told us they would be moving on, or it was right after they announced they'd be moving on from Dan Bilesma. So I think there are still questions from like fundamental, foundational questions that have to be answered by the front office before we really get a sense. But some of that honestly won't matter if Nyman and Catton don't prove themselves against their Seattle Kraken peers, both who are in the NHL or fighting for an NHL spot. I do think that Nyman will step up to the plate. Catton, seems like a freaking firecracker on the ice, and I think he's shown that in the camps that he's been at, but there's still a chance that he won't be ready. And I don't know how the fan base will receive that, but I think there's a difference from how we feel about Catton and Nyman making the team now versus how we'll feel about them making or not making the team once we see them at training camp, which is why I love prioritizing spending a significant amount of time at training camp and preseason so that I can give you my eye test. I personally prefer to rely on my eye test than any stats or articles or things of that nature. It provides, I think, very instrumental context. And I do think there's a chance that both of them make it. But going back to Darren, I think Darren has probably what is my instincts as of now. He wrote what my instincts are as of now. That Berkly Catton probably makes this roster. So what he writes here, and I think you should read the full article. I'm going to summarize, but he talks about the age rule itself factoring in here, and that between that and his potential, he can make the team out of camp. But the question remains, how long will he stay? And that we also saw with Shane Wright. I do think even if Berkly Catton doesn't show everything that the Kraken want to see, they probably keep him around, for however many games. It's like 9 games or something that he can stick around. Darren is leaning towards that. That's probably what I'm leaning towards as well. With Nyman, this is interesting. What Darren says is that it really depends on who else is making the team out of camp. And that with some of the veterans and some of the moves in the offseason, Schwartz, Kakko, McCann, Marchment, Eberle, Tolvanen, where does Nyman fit in if not on those top 2 lines? And that is a good question. Can he grab a spot from someone else, or are the Kraken going to put him on a bottom 6 line, even though, as Darren argues, and I probably agree, that's not what he's really being developed to be. So by that stretch, does Nyman stay in the AHL? I think that makes sense. And this is my frustration with the Kraken to an extent. I think Nyman makes the strongest case between Catton and even comparative to Shane Wright for what the Kraken need, in my opinion, which is a big body, big, strong body with a knack for the net. And where does he fit in? Well, that's a GM problem, right? You stack this roster, you've got this guy who's got some NHL experience. Are you going to keep him in the AHL? I don't know. That one's a little tough. He talks in Darren in his article also about Melanson, and I think Darren's opinion is that Melanson probably has the best chance of making the NHL, if only because he fits with the other forwards that are expected to be around, including Cartier, Gaudreau, who I haven't mentioned too much. Of course, we know Stevenson. As of now, Darren is projecting that both Nyman and Melanson make the roster, but are kind of like the odd 2 out, which, especially looking at Nyman, is that what we want to do? Other people have chimed in. The hockey writers, they believe that that it will be Nyman who makes the roster, but not Berkly Catton, or at least, not in a true, in a true pairing, at least. Maybe he becomes one of the extra skaters here. But they say, quote, "It feels more likely that Catton will receive the right treatment, making him play in lower level leagues for a couple of seasons and then officially getting called up to the NHL full-time when they feel he is ready." So that was the hockey writers. We also have, Over at Puckpedia, they are expecting Nyman also to make the roster. The only place that I have seen so far think that Catton should be on that list when it comes to projecting the lines for the Seattle Kraken in the upcoming season is our friends at Kraken Season on Instagram. And again, I think it's possible. I do think that we just need more information, and this is going to be a great test. Are we going to see a more conservative approach under Botterill, or are we going full on youth movement? Either way, Berkly, Catton, and Jani Nyman will be the representatives at the NHLPA rookie showcase coming up next week. And we'll see what kind of fun content comes out of it. Coming up next, a third jersey will also be revealed shortly here. Let's talk about what we think it could be and what we like and honestly don't like about some of the uniforms in the Kraken past. Plus, the Common Threads theme nights are officially launched, and we're going to talk about it. All of that and more coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. All right, Seattle hockey fans, we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and viewers, just like you, and we want to make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey to get started. And hey, if you want to mention that you'd love to see the Women's Hockey Report have its own channel and be 5 days a week, I'd be fine with that. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. Want to let you know that today's episode, as I mentioned at the top of the show, brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. We know NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you'll get $300. That's right, $300 in bonus bets for you to use across the map. Now, I know that football fans are in a tizzy with all of the moves being made and things of that nature. So now is the chance. If you didn't get in on the futures bets, take a look at what's going down and see if you're willing to make a wager. Are you looking at your fantasy lineup? Are you watching your favorite team? Either way, FanDuel is quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, Seattle hockey fans. I went a little longer than I thought I was going to in that first segment, but this is important. You know, what are we going to learn about this team in how they handle roster construction? We are getting to the point where weeks away from, even rookie camp for the Seattle Kraken. There's a rookie showcase that's happening. So there's a lot of touch points that we'll have very soon, a lot of data, eye test data, stats data, etc., where we'll be able to craft what we think is going to happen. But what we do know is going to happen is that whomever makes the roster is going to have a fresh third jersey. That's right. The Seattle Kraken teased, they've been teasing this all off season, right? And we know now the Seattle Kraken are going to release a new third jersey. Let's go to the final little teaser video where we very clearly know that this is going to be a third jersey. I mean, like most everything that the Seattle Kraken do, it is theatric. It has some Kraken flair, some mystery to it, but here's what the Kraken released. We see the water. Someone in what looks to be a cave with guide lights. I'm sure. Yo, something's happening. Third jersey reveal, September 4th. So that's just playing again now. But I mean, so what are your thoughts here? What do you think the Kraken is cooking up here? I think that seeing the comments, across social media and the like is really interesting. People saying that they want an anchor jersey. We've heard people say that, they think it's going to favor the kind of glow in the dark. I know Dallas had one. People talked about, oh, it's going to look kind of like Vegas, baka baka ba. I mean, I see, like a captain at a wheel. I see the compass. So I don't know how that's going to be integrated. A designer, I am not. So my guess is as good as anyone's here. But I think it's exciting. I think the Kraken, except for that the reverse retro jersey, just no, never again. Never, 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 never again. That was a terrible jersey. Never loved it. We didn't play well in it. The Winter Classic jersey was nice. I know a lot of people wanted maybe a little bit more of a callback to the Metropolitans. We talked about that on the show before. There are a lot of reasons that didn't happen, including there was actually even a lawsuit or, a cease and desist that was released even with the Winter Classic jerseys that we did get. So I don't know what that is going to look like. I would love to see the anchor more prominently featured. I've seen people say we're going to get a all red jersey. I don't know. Let me know. What do you think? What do you absolutely love as far as options? What are things that you absolutely don't want to see? Like, I don't want to see us go into like the light blue. At least, I don't know. Maybe it's because not the Winter Classic, the reverse retro. I still don't even know what reverse retro actually means. Not even outside of the context of the Kraken, because we don't have retro. How can you retro something that's brand new? Anyway, reverse retro as a concept, I just don't understand. I don't like, literally, what does that mean? You're reversing something that's okay, I don't get it. We're gonna move on. But let me know, what do you think? What would you like to see? I love the anchor. I love people talking about the anchor. So someone said on Reddit, give me the anchor or give me death. We'll reserve judgment till we see it, but thought they knocked it out of the park with the Winter Classic uniforms and should just stick with that as the third. I wouldn't be against that. And then same person says perhaps something with the anchor Space Needle logo as the main logo. Again, a lot of people talking about the Winter Classic jersey and anchor. So I think from, the conversations that I've seen, people are in agreement that, we loved the Winter Classic jersey and we love the anchor. I don't think I'm looking over because my earrings, I have them on a little stand over there. And one of my anchor earrings broke and I have to get it fixed. But I had some anchor earrings. If you know about my Uma outfit, then you know. But I would love a reason to have more anchor accessories. So make it happen, Seattle. Okay, thanks. Coming up next, let's talk about the common threads schedule. That's, of course, the theme nights before we close out another fantastic episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. I can attest to this. I have a pretty crazy schedule and I use Monarch and it helps organize my finances. And if that sounds like you, then Monarch is probably for you because Monarch does the heavy lifting. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization on your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And I adore people who are good with spreadsheets. I'm just not one of them. Give me a template and I will cook. You know what I'm saying? But to come up with it on my own, no. That's what I love to that's why I love Monarch Money. For my business, I use it and it has been a huge help, even as I now have a bookkeeper that helps me just to get things organized and in a way that makes sense to me because, you know, other platforms and what my bookkeeper is using, love that they know what they're doing. I couldn't, again, from scratch. But Monarch Money helped ease that transition. And I actually still use Monarch Money to keep track just to make sure that I understand where everything is going and that it aligns with what is going on with my bookkeeper. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, Kraken fans, we have the Kraken Common Thread schedule, the theme night schedule, and it's another great one. So this includes, we used to know this as Hockey is for Everyone. A couple of seasons ago, the Seattle Kraken specifically rebranded this Kraken Common Thread. And so this includes everything from the Hockey Fights Cancer Night, Pride Night, Women in Hockey Night. You know, I love me some women in hockey, Women in Hockey Night. And I love also that we're playing Nashville. So that means we get to link up with Ann Kimmel for that one. Black Hockey History, always a good one. Indigenous peoples, African American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Night. Green Night, Military Appreciation, Indigenous Peoples Night, and Hispanic Heritage Night. Now, this is something that we've talked about before on the show, and the Seattle Kraken have, I think, done a much better job of being more deliberate with Hispanic Heritage Night. I am Latina. I personally prefer to use Latina, never Latinx. No, I rebuke it. Latina or Latino, and just the way the language works, the O is not. And I'm not doing a grammar. We're not doing grammar in Spanish right now. It's not even my first language. But the point is, I'm Latina. But for the purposes of this, I will accept Hispanic heritage, even though Latino and Hispanic, there are differentiations there. But I get what you're trying to do. I can get on board here. That's actually going to be the first Kraken Common Thread night. That's going to be on October 28th against Montreal. And so benefiting El Centro de la Raza. So that'll be a good one. The next theme night is Military Appreciation Night against the Columbus Blue Jackets on 11/11. And so it's going to benefit Fisher House. So I also love Common Thread because they're connecting with local organizations. Kraken Hockey Fights Cancer, benefiting the Kraken Hockey Fights Cancer Fund, Indigenous, that's on November 15th. On December 12th, versus Colorado, Indigenous Peoples Night, presented by Muckleshoot Indian Tribe, benefiting Rise Above. We've got Pride Night on January 8th versus Minnesota, and that's benefiting Seattle Pride. AAFL NHPI night, again, Asian American, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander night, on January 29th versus Toronto. I think I'll already be or on my way to Italy by then. This is benefiting the CID Business Improvement area. Black Hockey History Night. I think I'll also miss this one, which I'm gutted about. I think I'll just miss it. And even if I'm in the States, I'll be so gassed. But that's on February 28th versus Vancouver, benefiting this I love, benefiting Black Future Co-op Fund. As someone who's followed the OL Reign, the Seattle Reign, and I'm so glad they got back to the Seattle Reign. Anyway, I've been following the Seattle Reign / OL Reign / Seattle Reign for a really long time, even when they were in Tacoma, and they put me on to Black Future Co-op Fund. I still have, I'm pointing over here because that's where I have all my jerseys, and I've worn that jersey on the show before, my Sierra King Rain jersey with Black Future Co-op Fund. So I love that one. Women in Hockey Night, benefiting Bras for Girls on March 10th versus, as I mentioned earlier, Nashville, and Green Night against Utah. And that is benefiting the Stewardship Partners. So there you go. Kraken common threads. Some of them will also, accumulate with some giveaways. I believe we'll have to cross-reference that. I love a good giveaway. I feel like the giveaway schedule this year, like they tried to be super cute with it, but it was also super hard to read. So I have to cross-reference now that we have this graphic instead of that one. See, but there's bobbleheads. There was something that I was like, oh, this is really interesting. I have to look at the giveaway schedule again. We'll talk about it. But I just found the format a little busy for me. But, I'm wearing my blue light glasses, non-prescription, but definitely blue light. I have eye sensitivity, so that was just a little much for me. But that's your Kraken comment thread theme nights. I'm hoping that we can do more deep diving here. I know King 5 does a great job highlighting these, and I want to be able to do that on the show as well. I think a lot of you know where my heart lies when it comes to being inclusive, and these nights are a great way to do that. Let me know, what Kraken common thread theme night are you most excited about? Also, of course, the big conversation was about Jani Nyman and Berkly Catton. We know that they're going to be at the NHLPA rookie camp. Will they make the roster out of camp and preseason? That is the question. And maybe the question really is not will they, but should they? And if they don't, I mean, I'm like, there's one question, and then I list 5. If they don't make the roster, or if they do, what does this tell us about the direction the organization is taking? We will tackle all of that and more as we march ever closer to the upcoming regular season, to the Olympics. I will be in Italy. I'm super excited for that. And so much more. So stay with us here at Locked On Kraken. Thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day, your midday listen, your late night listen. Either way, we appreciate your comments. Don't forget to take that survey, folks. Let us know what you like, and what you don't like, what you want to see more of. Wink, wink, Women's Hockey Report. Just putting that out there. And we will catch you on the next episode. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to one another. We hold fast, we stay true, and loud and proud we say, let's go Kraken. And I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.